All right, so good evening, guys. So welcome to today's class. In our previous class we had, I think, okay, the last class I was not able to record the video. Reason being that I had network difficult, like network was very terrible. So I was even supposed to record the class, but due to one or two, so I couldn't. So pardon me for that. So we'll continue from where we stopped. So in our previous class, we talked about image, like using the image elements in HTML. And I said the two most important attributes for you to specify in your image element is the source attribute, which is the name of the file. And don't forget, the attribute comprises of the attribute name, which is SROC, which stands for source, and equal to say the attribute value. And don't forget, the value must be in quotation mark, inside quotation mark, which is this opening and closing quotation mark. Then an alternate text, you specify this just in case maybe your image is missing, or maybe, for instance, now this particular test image or JFIF is not on your local file directory. Maybe you are using an image URL to load the image, and sometimes a web server can be down and the image will fail to load. So when you have this alternate text here, that is the alternative text, it will be rendered instead of that image. And for those persons that are disabled, like for persons that can't see and they can only hear, for instance, if they are using maybe this text to speech function, maybe in their on their phone or laptop, you can be able to read out that Tom and Jerry alternate text since they can't see. But once you can give it a descriptive name like Tom and Jerry image, for instance, and you just make it descriptive so that the persons or they will easily know that okay, the image that was supposed to render here, this is what it actually means. So today I'm going to be continuing on the image element, and I'll be talking about five parts, FILEKT, that is specify files, like the file part for your document, that is your web page. Remember in our last, when we were building this file, let me go to web development folder. As you can see, with this particular test image, it is on the same file level with this, the default, that is the home page, which is the index.html. Don't forget, the home page for your web page or the home page for your web project, make sure you store it as, you save it as index.html, because that's how you know that this is the default home page. Some places usually name there as default default.html, but just follow good practice and use index.html to store your web page and to give it the home page name. So you can see this test image is on the same hierarchy, that is, it's on the same level with the index.html. But when you are working on complex projects, most times, just imagine you are building a website or you are building a web app. Don't forget, you can call it a website, you can call it a web app. So there are basically like two types of app. You have the mobile app, which runs on your phones or your device, while you have a web app which runs on, you can only access it using a browser. So when you're building a web app or a website, let me just stick with websites for easy understand. When you're building a website, most complex websites you see, they contain a whole lot of images, like the images are much. Let's say, for instance, now let's go to Amazon, which is one of my favorite. Sorry, ZON. Go to Amazon, for instance. You can see all these images you have seen, all these pictures, pictures for phones, laptop RAM. I think this is a Ledger Nano, yeah, for those into cryptocurrency, hardware, your hardware wallet. Then let's say, I don't know what this is, but vacuum cleaner. Just imagine all the pictures here. Imagine I was to like to save each pictures here, test image, I'll give it different names. The whole page, the whole folder, this is my web development folder, will be full of pictures, a whole lot of pictures. Like you can imagine, it will just be crowded and your file will be scattered. In fact, you will just be confused and tired. Why? Because your file is not structured. So what we do most times when you're building a web page is usually good that you have a directory or a folder. For Linux users or Mac users, you call it a directory, but for Windows, you call it a folder. So it's the same thing. So anytime maybe you are watching a tutorial video or any other person tells you this is a directory, or create a new directory and name it images, just simply say create a new folder for Windows, directory for Linux or Mac. So it depends on which OS you are using. So most times, usually create a folder and you can call it image, but just make sure that you know what that folder contains. So I could call this now image, so that all my image, for instance, will just be located there instead of me having different image floating all around my root directory. So this is what we'll do now. Recall from the source code here, since I could just easily like the source now, for this particular image source now, I could just type out the file name and the file format. And when we rendered it, let me open the browser, it actually loaded this image. Because do you know why it happens like that? Why? Because this particular test image is on the same file level with the index.html. That's why it works. So this image folder, the index.html, the test image, they are on the same file level. Let's say this is level 1. So if I should open this image folder, for instance, anything that is here is not on the same level in terms of hierarchy. Just like you have a tree, for instance, now. Let me quickly draw something so that let me illustrate it for you guys so that you understand what I'm saying. Let's say I'll call this, for instance, now. Let me just draw something here. Or let me just type a text. Let me just say this is father, for instance. Or let's say this is father, for instance. Then let me draw something else here. Pardon my drawing, no. This is just freehand. Then let's say this particular man, you can call the man Mr. Ojo, any name you want to call it. Then this particular man has 2 sons. The first son is called Mike, and the second one is called the second one is called John, for instance. Sorry. Then I'm just trying to explain what hierarchy means so that you understand. Then Michael now, for instance. So Michael, for instance, now. So let's say Michael now, for instance, like Michael have like 2 sons also. I could call this Ola. Then yeah, I could call this one Kunle. I don't know why I like Yoruba names. So I could call this Kunle. Then let me just extend it here. Yeah, I'll call this Tayo. Then let me say I call this Ose, for instance. Okay. So this particular tree now you are seeing now, the father has 2 sons. You see this Michael, for instance, and this John, they are on the same level. Why? Because they are both the sons of this particular man. So I could call this Mr. Benga or Daddy or Father, anyone you want to call it. But see, Michael and John, they are on the same level in terms of hierarchy. Why? Because they are both the sons of this particular man. But Michael is not on the same level with Kunle and Ola. You understand? So Ola, Kunle, Tayo, and Ose, you get, they are on all these 4 guys here, they're on the same level. So you could say Michael and John, they are the son. Why Ola, Kunle, Tayo, and Ose, the 4 of them, they are what you known as the grandchild or grandson, anyone you want to call it, you understand? So Ola, Kunle, Tayo, Ose, they are on the same level. Why Michael and John, they are also on the same level, for instance. So if I want to use an image to illustrate it now, so let me just erase this now. Let me erase this now so that you see. So imagine the default directory for your pictures now, we'll call it image, for instance. Then, you know, you can have different image on your website, like you could have different image on your website. So let's say you are building like an e-commerce shop, for instance, or an e-commerce store like AliExpress, and what you are just selling simply is male and female clothes. So we could say, for instance, now, I'll create an image, a folder called image. Then inside the image folder, I'll create 2 other folders. And one of the folder will be male pictures. Then the second folder here, I could call this female pictures. For instance, I'll drag that. Then this second folder, for instance, now, I could call it female pictures. Then what I will now do now, then let me just erase this. I'm just trying to like use the most basic method to explain it so that you know what hierarchy means. So when you're trying to reference the images, you already know that, okay, this is how I'm going to do it. So then what I'll do now, then under male picture, I could say adults. So you are not sending clues for only adults alone. I could say adults, then I could say children, for instance. Then what I could do now, I could also create another folder for the female. I could say this is female adults. Just even if it's not correct, just ignore. Just try and understand what I'm trying to do. Then I could also say, so that you can differentiate, I could also say female child, for instance. So pardon my, even if it is not correct in terms of English, but just trying to understand why. Because I have an e-commerce shop whereby I have pictures for, like, I could be selling trousers or shirts or any particular kind of cloth, and I'm selling for both male and female. And under the male category, I have the matured ones like the adult male. Then I also have children, that is the male. Then I also have the female adult and the female child. So if you have a website like this and your file is structured like this, for instance, if let's say you want to load an image and the image is located under this, like, let's say adult, for instance, the male adult, how are you going to do it? So that's what I'm going to show you guys so that you know how to reference it. So let's say this is for like image, this is the overall folder where I store all my image here. Then I will now right click on this now, and let me just create two folder. I could say this is male. Then I'll create another folder here. So I'll call this female. So what we'll do now, let me just go to Google now and say, and let me just look for any random photo, male, for instance. I'll go to image, then let me download this. I'll call this male pics. Then let me look for female, for instance. Or I could call this girl. Let me look for any picture. Which of them? I like this one. So I'll save the image as on desktop. I'll call this girl, for instance, now. So let me save it now. So what I'll now do now, since I saved it to my desktop, so what I'll do now, let me just rename this so that it will just be easy. I'll call this boy. I'll call this girl. So the boy now, I'm going to cut it because I want to move it from one place to another. So I'll cut it now. Then I'll send it to mail there. I'll paste it here. Then what I'll do next now is I'll go to where the female picture is, which is the girl. Let me just cut it. So I'll go to where the female is. Then I'll paste it here. So don't forget, this is our web development folder. Then all the pictures we are working on. So let me just leave this test image. Remember, this was the Tom and Jerry image. Let me just leave this for now. But so on that image, I created 2 folders. And inside the male folder, there's a picture here, which is boy. And there's another picture inside the female folder, which is girl. Imagine now I want to load this particular picture boy on my web page. And also for the female, I want to load this picture also How am I going to do it? Don't forget, you see this particular structure, yeah, image. There, this could be any folder name, but just know what you use in naming them, know the hierarchy. This image folder is not on the same level with the male pictures and female pictures, but the male pictures and female pictures, they are on the same level in terms of hierarchy. Why this particular folder, this one, the adult children, female adult, and female child, they're on the same level, you understand? So let me minimize this now. So we'll go back to our source code now. So let me just copy this now so that I will not type it over and over again to avoid being repetitive. So I'll paste this now. So what I'll do now, imagine I want to reference the image for the first person now, is male, for instance. Don't forget, this is the root file, the root directory, the default, the home folder, the root folder, which contains the image and everything. By the time you start coding CSS, also, you also have you can create a folder where you put all your CSS file, but this stuff for the sake of this image. So don't forget. So for us to reference it now, first of all, you remember in our when we added the Tom and Jerry picture, what we did is that we just typed it in image file, the image name, which is test_image. But since it is not on the same level, it is not on the same hierarchy, we still have to go inside the image folder, then go inside the main folder for us to get it. So this is what we'll now do now. First thing you have to do, you are define the folder, the directory name or the folder name image. So this is what we'll do now for the first person now. The source now, what we'll now do, we'll do this image followed by a /, right? Image followed by a /. Then inside image, it is under where? Mail, right? Mail folder. So this is what you now do next. You add mail to it, mail, then /. Then we open the mail folder now. The file name is what? Boy, don't forget to avoid typo. The file now, don't forget also know the file type. Is it JPEG? It can be a JPEG, it can be a PNG, which is portable network graphic, I think. It could also be GIF. I've forgotten the meaning, but I think PNG stands for portable network graphic, while JPEG stands for, I think, joint photographic expert group also. So don't forget the extension here is GIF. If it is JPEG, make sure it has JPEG file. So the name of the file is boy. So what we'll now do now, you come to this place and you now add boy dot what? JFIF. So the file, the image now, what you are telling your browser now is to go to the image folder, yeah? So what you are telling your browser now is, let me zoom this. What you are telling your browser now is go to this image folder. Under the image folder, open the mail folder. Then under the mail folder, look for a file called boy.jfif. Then for the alternate text, I could call this boy picture. We'll call this boy picture. I'll save this. So let us load this image, this page on the browser. Now, as you can see now, this particular image is here. So let's do the same now for the female. So let's do the same for the female now. Don't bother about how it is arranged on your web browser. You use CSS to style it when times come, but just know that what you can use HTML. HTML is just for the structure. What are the things that your website contains? That's so how to add them, because you can't do CSS without HTML. Okay, if at all you want to learn CSS, for instance, now what are you styling? If you want to style this image, now maybe you style the border and the rest, or take it to the left or to the right or to the middle. Without the image itself, which you will add using HTML, what are you going to style? So one step at a time, HTML first, you understand? So let's do that now for the female now. So let me paste this here now. I've already copied it before. And don't forget, it is under the image folder here, / female, I think. Then this is the root file for the image. Then image / female. Then after female, then girl. Then this is what we'll do now. Girl.jfif. Then I could now call this your picture. So let me save this now. Don't forget save for it to update itself. Then if I should reload this now, you see this picture here. So the picture, the male picture, then the girl's picture, and the Tom and Jerry picture. So that's how you reference a particular file. So that's how to like use this particular tree, this document tree, so that you know how files are structured. If, for example, now under adult now, you still have maybe 0 to 5 years, 8 to 10 years, different folder, you just be using / to be like specifying it. You understand? See when you get to where the file is, and don't forget to avoid, make sure you avoid typo, make sure that your file is spelled correctly. And also the file extension, this dot here is known as an extensor. The dot you are seeing here is an extensor, while the extension here is JFIF. So it could be any file extension, it could be JPEG, it could be PNG, it could be any file extension. Make sure it is spelled correctly. Let's say, okay, let us like just omit a particular, let us like put an error like the female folder now. Let me just remove the E and save it, and let us reload the page. It will not work. Why? Because there's an error in typing. You can see now. Remember when we specify girl picture? Let me show you something. Remember this girl picture? I said if the image doesn't load, for instance, what you specified for the alternate text, that's what is going to be displayed. Girl picture in this case, you can see my cursor is girl picture. So I have to like add a typo here so that the image will not load. So the image didn't load. You see this girl picture you are seeing here now. Let me zoom this now. Let me zoom this so that you see. You can see now this girl picture you are seeing right here. It's what we specified the alternate. So don't forget, always add the alternate text to your web page. So I will shrink this back now. So what we'll do now, so that's all. So let me add the E back for the female folder, and let me save this. Then let me go back and refresh this page, and it will be displayed. So that's how you add image. And don't forget, make sure that your file is structured. You have a folder whereby you have all your image. Then your image folder could contain other folder that you can use to specify different. Let's say, okay, you are building a website for cars alone. You could say, I'll have a folder, I'll have an image folder. Then under the image folder, I'll have different folder. One of the folder will be BMW, another one will be Toyota, another one will be Lamborghini, different folder, so that each folder with different cars for the same brand. You understand? So that's how you specify the file structure for your image using HTML. So HTML, it has a lot of like things you have to learn, but you just have to learn the basics and basic to the intermediate stage. Then you can always build on it. Trust me, HTML can be boring, but without it, in fact, that's the foundation, that's the building block for being a web developer, whether front end, even if you want to be a back-end engineer or back-end developer, you just need to know HTML because you just have to start from that. And if your foundation is not good, this is not like school whereby you can cram and pass. This is in terms of programming or learning tech, anything you skip or anything you use Dagbo to do, it will definitely haunt you. You still come and meet it in front, not running away. So that's all for today's class. Then I will unmute you guys. So in case you have any question, just please unmute yourself or raise up your hand and I'll call on you and answer the question or ask me any question you want. So that's all for today's class. Please, if you have any question, please ask me. If you have a question, please unmute yourself and ask. Unmute yourself and ask. Please unmute yourself if you have any question, or I should not be begging you to ask your question, please. Did I call on somebody? Should I pick now? Okay, Kingsley. Mr. Kingsley. If you are there, please.
Yes, I'm here. Good evening.
Good evening. How are you doing?
I'm fine, and you?
I'm doing great. So, based on today's class, do you have any question?
No, really. So far, so good.
So it's clear.
Great.
So it's
yes,
clear, right?
Very clear. Yeah.
All right. So thanks for attending the class, and also don't forget to put in the work and practice, practice, practice. So what you do after today's class, you could just open a particular folder, add different folder, different subfolder, like let's say image, then inside image you have cars, then under cars you have BMW, Toyota, and the rest. Then under Toyota you could say different products, just within like that, so that you know how to reference images when you want to reference it on your web page. You understand? So just make sure you practice that and do that as well.
Okay, so I just remember the question. So,
All right.
okay, if I want to add, let's say in the folder where I have the male, that's the boy.
In the
Let's
folder where
say
you
I
have what?
have the folder where I have the boy, that's the male folder.
Okay.
So I'm giving an example. So let's say I have like 5 pictures.
Okay.
And I do not want to repetitively type all of this and then add the pictures separately. Is there a way I can use one single line of code to add all the pictures I want?
Don't do that. Why? You run into error. And don't forget, you could do that with a normal programming language. You understand? You could automate it, but sorry to burst your bubble, HTML is not the programming language. HTML is a markup language, just the way you have XML, extensible markup language, or you have XHTML. HTML is a markup language, not the programming language. So, and I'm not seeing a case whereby you want to be loading all the image, but you could do that as well using JavaScript. You could do that as well using JavaScript if you want, but we've not got to the part of JavaScript. But doing that solely with HTML, it is not recommended. Avoid styling and avoid automating your web page using HTML, because before in the past you could do that, but due to changes and upgrades, it is not the most efficient method of doing things. So that's why you see some persons that learned XHTML, or some persons that used to use some particular functions or some image or some element in XHTML. Today with HTML5, they are no longer working. There's what we know as deprecation, like they ruled off those particular function or those particular elements. They are no longer working. They no longer work. So avoid it. That's why if there was any one particular language that you can use to do everything, I don't see any reason or any need for other programming language like using Python or JavaScript. So that's why being a developer, you just need to know different things for you to build up a web page. So that's why even when you're working for a company or a startup, or as the case may be, you will not see one person doing all the work. You see some persons doing the front end, and even the front end is you can be doing the HTML and the CSS, while another person is doing the design. You understand? Why there can also be some other person that will be doing the back end, you understand? Why some other person is doing the API, like the middleman between the front end and the back end, you understand? So avoid it as much as possible. But because if you want to specify image, I've not seen any case whereby you want to like load it up everything at once, unless maybe you want to add a slider to your web page, like when you see some website whereby one image will just be loading and to be floating from left to right. That's a slider. You could do that. But for the sake of this class and also using HTML, it is not advisable. So just do it the normal method and to avoid you running into issue. So I hope I'm clear on that.
Yes, very clear.
All right. So is there any other question? So I assume that's okay.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So just for further clarification, what you're saying about the hierarchy, if an image file is on the desktop, it's not, I can't load it to the web page with
if your
Sublime
image file,
text.
if your image file is on the desktop, make sure that your index.html is also on the desktop.
Okay. Because after last week's class, when you introduced us to image sourcing, I tried it with an image that was saved to my desktop, but it was appearing.
Were you with us at the beginning of the class? You recall, if you see my desktop, can you see my desktop now? I created a folder strictly for this class, which is web development. So I expected you to do that as well.
Yes, I did that.
Okay, so make sure all
But
your image, all the resources are using to work that in a particular project or a
inside
project
the same
folder.
folder.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right. So is there another question before we wrap it up for today's class? So since no further questions, so that will be all. See you guys on today's Wednesday. See you guys on Friday. Yeah, see you guys on Friday. Bye-bye.